Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Vanilla County. And last time out, we put in this massive intersection and overhauled those horrendous vanilla starting highway networks. I think it turns out pretty nice. I know a few of you were confused by the junction and why I did things this way. It was only because I felt like it had a nicer flow, like rather than just bringing this one in straight this side, like so they can just cross over here. If traffic becomes a problem, we can obviously alternate it to make two separate sides, but because it's vanilla traffic AI as well, they won't always use the way that you want them to use when you do a junction like that on a 4-lane road like this, so that was my logic there. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty nice indeed. Now, coming on to today, I do want to start fleshing out our peninsula down here, and we have got pretty significant industrial demand. So we're going to be putting in a forestry industry down here surrounded by a little kind of out-of-town village style area, some more intermittent housing rather than the packed-in suburbs that we've been doing up until this point. A little bit more natural coastal detailing around it and much less built up around here. So that's the plan for today, but before we get started I am going to do a little bit of naming. So the first thing that we are coming to is this little European suburbia area here with the waterfront, and we have gone for Puddington, which was a suggestion by Roland Austria. Thank you so much for that. It got an awful lot of upvotes on that episode and I really like that name. Obviously it's a very vanilla area. So I think Puddington makes sense for this, and we've got Puddington Waterfront, Puddington Boardwalk, Puddington Park, all kind of different variations of that for our little Puddington area here. Love that, thank you so much for that suggestion. And then the other place that we haven't named yet is our big energy waste and sewage areas over here. So we've gone for 3 different names for this. Tyler Energy Corp first up, and that was a suggestion by Kieran Barker. Thank you so much for that. Really like that name suggestion, obviously being so close to Tyler. Thank you. We've also got Fewage Water Solutions Inc. I mean, I think I'm getting the theme that we're going to be doing a lot of plays on Few in, in this series. So yeah, we got for Fewage Water Solutions Inc. and that was a suggestion by Everett. Thank you so much for that. And we've also got the Reduce, Refuse, Recycle Centre over here, which was a suggestion by Seth. So thank you so much for that. Really love those, and it does mean that I think we're now fully named up to this point. So before we get too heavily involved in our forestry area, there's a few little networks that we need to sort out, like these ones, where the highway was originally having a horrendous slope down this hill. We were going to bridge them over. Obviously these can now come under and stay ground height, which will be really nice indeed for getting them round to here. We've also got this network that we need to finish off. Now we're right at the tile boundary here, but what I would like with this is to bend it round and bring it over into the town that we're going to be doing here. This is going to be fairly built up around this peninsula. So this is a little bit of a transition area, a bit of countryside I suppose, between our big main city, which will be situated here, and these are the starting suburbs of that, and this town over this side. So this will be a nice collector and an alternative again to the highway flowing over here to get people across to this eventual town this side. So that's the kind of plan with that. So the terrain that we're working with as well is pretty slopey here. Like, this is actually quite a severe hill on this bump, so there's going to be some interesting terrain work going on here for sure. And in particular, this collector coming around here, we're going to have to do some sloping with this. Just like that. So that is a little bit more smooth. Still a little bit janky. We'll maybe try and neaten that up a little bit later on. Then we're just going to apply the same techniques that we did with our highway. We're going to go to the smallest elevation that we can here. We're just going to bring this nicely across the river, as flat as we can get it. Just like that. Now coming back to our rail line next up, let's trim this back because we're going to need to slope this down to meet the height of the terrain here. Just like that. And then the same goes for this road as well. Just like that. And then what we do want to do is bring them round essentially. So this rail line, because this is the internal rail line, I'd definitely like to bring this across to this city here. I'm not worried about connecting it into the intercity at this point. We'll be doing that further up over this side. So we can just cross right over it, probably parallel to that bridge. I think would look really nice. And actually, luckily, when we look at the terrain lines, you'll see this bridge comes out between these two, which is exactly where the rail is now. So we should be able to get this in nice and smoothly if we just follow that terrain line around. So we'll do this with terrain on, and we're going to go to freeform. It's going to be a little bit bumpy in places, but what we will do is come around and smooth it out afterwards. We're going to bring it around this little peninsula like so. We'll bring out a straight section there. And then what we want to do is meet up with this bridge over here and bring it straight across. Again, just using those same techniques. So I'll do this off camera and we'll be back once the bridge is in. Just like that. Now, on my way to doing this, I have also added in a train station here because I feel like that would be quite appropriate for getting some of the workers through to the forestry area. So we are just going to go ahead and extend our main line from here. So we'll just grab this stop and we'll move it up to here. I think it's a decent enough distance away from Puddington stop here. We'll just get that stop back in. So now they're going all the way through from Tyler Town Centre at the moment. It will be the downtown eventually. Through Puddington and onto our forestry district here. Now, one thing I did also want to do on the networks just before we start building our forestry area was upgrading this road here. I'd really like bike paths on it. We've actually got bike lanes coming in from this side. If we upgrade it all the way across here, then we have got bike lanes that run right through the centre of Tyler, all the way and up and through here. Like, would be really, really, really well connected. So I feel like it makes sense for this road to be bike lanes for sure. Now here, the only trouble with this bridge is if we upgrade it, we lose our lovely arches, and I really want them because I think it's a nice contrast to our big suspender highway bridges over there. So what we are actually going to do with this is add in a bike path right up next to here, so people can kind of transfer from the main road and go onto the dedicated bike superhighway crossing this bridge. That is the general idea for this. So like that. So we have now got our bike lane, our main road and our train all crossing through over to that town. And with this as well, I am going to look at policies for the first time. If we go to city planning, we are going to turn on encourage biking across the entire city and hope that we get a lot of people biking around. If we go back to the original Tyler area, there are quite a few people using some of the bike lanes, so it does look super busy as of right now. But there are quite a few, so hopefully that will increase. Yeah, you can see them coming down here because we do now have a really nice extensive bike network across all of the areas that we have built so far. So coming on to the forestry area. So the first thing to do is we want to get in our district for this. So we're actually just going to paint it over this entire area for now. It's not going to fill this all out. And I am also going to extend it very slightly up here because we may utilise some of that space. We'll tidy it up based on what we use afterwards. But we have got a nice large area to start playing with here. Now you will see on the resources tab as well, most of it is forestry, but it's not super densely packed. So I am just going to come in with forest brush. And if you don't have this, then obviously just place your trees individually. And we're going to really quite heavily forest over a lot of this area, and then we can come through and kind of change it up and detail the bits where we don't have big forest patches afterwards. But yeah, I'm removing the trees originally because they're not in our current Vanilla County forest brush pattern. So we want to make sure things are looking nice and consistent across the entire city. And then I am just going to go ahead and delete the trees from around here because we'll be coming on to build other things around there a little bit later on. But you can see now I've got that on a pretty strong strength. If we go back to the resources tab, we are like maxed out with forestry across most of this. So let's just bring it in slightly tighter along this road if we can. Lovely. And then we can have some nice forest plots up against this collector here. Now in terms of the name for our forestry industry, we are going to name this after one of my top tier Patreons. So we are going to call this the John Robinson Lumber Inc. Thank you so much, John, for being a top tier Patreon. I so appreciate the support, and I hope once we've got our forestry area in that you like it. So in terms of the design, we're going to have one main road that flows through this area. So I think we will go ahead and actually use an industrial road for that. We're going to bring it out of this node here and we'll bring it up to about there. We'll do nicely a little bit further straighter on actually. And then we're just going to bend it round and create a bit of interest in this road as if kind of you're coming into a country area and you've got bendy roads to get into your lumber yard there. And thankfully this isn't too slopey coming down the top here and it's pretty flat in the middle. So that should give us a nice starting basis. Then from there, we're going to work out some little grids that we can put some forestry plots on. So I'm going to bring out one of the gravel roads and then we can get our main building in. And that then unlocks a load of other stuff as well. And with the main building, how I like to position it is I do like this on the corner because it has the trees around the back and this left-hand side of it. So if we can put forestry plots in around there, it kind of helps to blend it in a little bit, I think. So you see what I mean? If we put in a small tree plantation next to it here, and of course, for this map, we are definitely going to be using conifers for this. We've already got them in our tree brush. So it looks pretty nice and consistent, especially to this asset and the other assets that have trees on them for this particular theme too. It being boreal, I think it makes sense. And you can kind of see it blends into the back of this main building. So yeah, I like how that looks a lot. So we're going to start by placing a few of these. So we're going to be able to see them, like I said, along this collector road here. Let's definitely change these up to our conifers. So we can see this big wooded heavy forestry area up along this left hand side, then it will go out into more sparse areas over here. And then what we can do with this road, let's bring it out slightly further along, is we can bring it up alongside the forestry plot this side, which then creates a little bit of interest from our highway road. We probably want some fencing around this side to separate them off. It gives us some kind of interesting space to deal with here for our lumber yard and the such like. So if we come back into here, we do have one log yard already. So I would kind of like to place this pride of place right there. I think a couple of them actually next to each other, right in the middle, would look pretty good. But if we have a look, we've also got the sawmill here, which is quite a nice addition too. So if we bring up our gravel road like that, we can place in a sawmill this side. And again, if we just think about orientation of it as we're driving up here, we could potentially even clear out a couple of these trees just to make a little bit more of a view through to our forestry area. Like that, and we'll get a bit of undergrowth in there, but just so you can see through. In terms of orientation, I quite like that angle of it from the road, so you can kind of can't really see the arm, but you can just see the buildings and the open building at the back there in particular with the red buildings out front. I like how that looks. And let us also, before we forget, get some electricity into here. So we're just going to put in a temporary power connection around the back there for now, and we'll adjust that later on. So if we have a little look at the requirements, we need 150 workers. We're not actually quite there yet with what we've plopped. We need 500 resources, which is fine. We're going to get some plain timber from our sawmill there. So let's get in a few more plots just to start off with. And for now, I don't really mind where I'm placing them because we'll reposition them once we unlock more buildings. We'll just place in 3 like that, and why not go and get another little sawmill to fit into this space right here. So I'm actually going to place that right in the middle, because then with spaces like this we can do a little bit of vanilla surface painter with a bit of a gravel path there, and the fact that it's broken I quite like actually, because I think it gives it a slightly more roughed up effect to it. And here, let's just turn those off so we've just got grid on, and again we'll bring that up that side and that sits in. Oh, that's actually filled that out quite nicely over this side. So if we check back now, yeah, we've got more than enough workers. We haven't fulfilled the requirement, but the space for workers is absolutely there. We've still got industrial demand down here, and we just need to slowly make the resources for it. So while we wait for that, let's go ahead and start putting in a bit of a road network and just some basic vanilla housing zoning for a very kind of rural village extension to Puddington out this side. Okay, so we have reached level 2 with our forestry area, and we've actually got almost the maximum number of workers in, with still quite a lot of industrial demand down here. But if we just have a little look at the village, so what I've tried to do is create smaller houses mostly. I'm going to let some of these upgrade. I have historicalised some of them as well, like the smaller sort of one-storey ones. The type of vibe that I want out here. And also done a load of 1x3, 1x2, even some 1x1s in here to get some smaller assets. And these are really the ones I want, these kind of like little wooden cabins. I'm not so sure about these designs, so we can keep a couple of them, but I definitely don't want 3 in a row. I'm definitely more after that wooden cabin type look for a couple of these smaller houses along the front here. Got an extra road that goes up to the station, and some of these roads are quite steep, but I don't think that they're unrealistic or unmanageable just for cars. I wouldn't be expecting any industrial traffic down here because there's no commercial or anything like that. That's all contained up on the main street with a little firehouse on the corner here, post office, a couple of little shops. Pennies and Big Bites. I'm thinking fast food out here, and again a couple of shops with an elementary school, but that's really all that they are going to get out in this area. And I have just seen finally our little gas station has spawned in here, so let's make that historical. And a little cafe on the corner here for the forestry workers to come down to if they want to. But that's kind of the general design. I've done a bit of a waterfront out here, so as and when we need more people I will zone in a bit more residential around this side. But not too much. That's pretty much going to be it from the village's point of view. So hopefully we should be able to boost this from workers elsewhere by connecting in the railway station. So we're definitely going to have a pathway connecting into the back of the forestry area once this is all good and done and ready. But for now, what I would like to do is actually level this up as far as we can go just by plopping in some more assets. And then at the end, we are going to delete the entire thing and re-put everything in a design that we like. So yeah, this is just what we're doing for now. Plopping assets in left, right and centre to get our levels up. And you can see already with just those, we're actually already over that worker count. So we can let that count up and just hope our resources get up to there, which they will. It will keep making resources. It's just a matter of time on that one. We just need to manage the worker levels a little bit, but already that's shooting up actually. So we should be fine from that point of view. One thing I do want to put in now, though, is actually the workers' barracks, because it's a very odd asset, to be honest. Like, if we just plop it in and take a look at it, it doesn't go well in and amongst all this kind of heavy industry. It does go well amongst the forestry plopped elements, I'd say, but it looks a little bit more like a summer camp than anything else to me. That's definitely the vibe we get with these wooden walkways as well. I'm not really sure why they felt the need to raise it all up off the ground. I don't know. It's one of the oddest assets, I think, in the game. So what I would like to do with that is kind of create a plot for it over here on a cliff, kind of overlooking this bridge and overlooking this town out this side, and make it a little bit separate to the forestry area. However, still giving the boost and the benefit to it, because it does increase work efficiency. So it is a big help for getting those products and those resources across the line. So I'm thinking for that, let's get out our terraforming tools here, and we are just going to terraform out a bit of a platform at this point. And I kind of want it at a nice angle. And of course there's going to be a lot of detailing around this to help it sit in and blend in quite nicely. But we can then start to have a look at our gravel road, bringing it down on a slope here and then out at an angle like this. And let's just check that slope. So it is pretty steep, but not unmanageable, I think, again. So let's grab our barracks. We're going to relocate it. And of course, we do want to remember to add zoning to this so that we can relocate our barracks, but let's grab it now. We'll relocate it and we're going to plop it in here. So I'll probably move it over relatively far so it's a little bit separated. And then with this gravel track as well, I kind of don't really like it coming all the way out the front. That's not connected like that, so we'll just get this again. So I am just going to redraw it out just to the front of the building like this. So it's halfway up through the asset and that'll be connected, and then it leaves a bit more breathing space for other things around it. And then we can start to have a little look at detailing, which we will finish off later on. But certainly I think bringing in some rocks around this would be a nice thing to do, to kind of frame it off from the main rail line down there. So we've got this nice big one, oh, which does just about fit. I think we're going to have foliage on the rail line. Yeah, rocks. That's not ideal there. But we can certainly introduce a little bit of that along with some of the kind of flat patterns maybe might be nice along here. These ones, again, with a bit of undergrowth, overgrowth, as close as we can get them to these rocks, which can prove tricky. If you find sweet spots, you can get a little bit of overlap. I think the collision metric is a lot harsher on consoles. If you're on console, you probably won't be able to get it as close as you are seeing here. But it's really about trial and error. So that's what we're trying to go for here, at least. It's a bit of a sort of holiday camp look. A scout camp, if you were, nestled in on the cliff here, away from the forestry area, but equally obviously within the district, so we're still getting the benefit from it. So coming back to this, I will now just speed through, doing exactly what we did, plopping in assets where we can to get our levels up, and then we're going to come back and talk about the design for the finished area once we've got all of the different buildings unlocked. Okay, so we have finally hit level 5, and with that we've unlocked all of the different things from the forestry industry, so let's calm down our speed a little bit. And what we're going to do, as you can see, I've spammed down a lot of different things across quite a wide area. We're going to go ahead and delete most of these, and we're going to start thinking about actual designs for this area and how we can make it really nice and aesthetically pleasing and realistic at the same time as well. So that does leave us with our starting area that we placed in before and a little bit of extra space. So what we are going to do with this is, like I said, I want this main kind of lumber yard in the centre over here, and I want tree plantations, so we're going to pause it because I've broken the electric wires. We're going to have tree plantations surrounding this, blocking the noise and the pollution from these houses here, because if we go into these assets, you'll see these do not have any pollution or noise pollution, which is really good news. Obviously, none of these buildings are pollutive because it is a green industry, forestry, but these do have quite significant noise pollution. So we don't want any of these buildings too close to where the people are living. So you'll see this engineered wood plant I've got here is almost kind of touch and go, to be honest. We've got a little bit of noise pollution over the commercial bit and the elementary school, but it's not really touching too many houses, a couple of them here and a couple of them there, but hopefully the forestry around it will be enough to block that. But that's really as close as we want to get from the noise pollution point of view. So like in this space here, what we can do now is take some of our large plantations and start to fill out this area. So we'll take 2 of them like this. We have got a very small gap in the middle there, which I'll show you what we're going to do with in a second. And we'll fill out this other block with some more trees. They're all come out as conifers, which is good news. And then so for this little alleyway, we are going to take our nature reserve path for this. I'm going to turn it off grid and road guidelines for the moment. And we're just going to put in a very nice path through the centre here, because then that gives us some nice little detailing opportunities around it too. So we can come in and grab our forestry fence, for example, and line this path with that to kind of signify the edge of the main plantations here. And then we also do get a nice little walkway cut through onto this junction here as well, which will help feed people in and around the complex. And like I mentioned, I definitely want to bring up a path from the elementary school here. So we're going to run this actually up the side of this tree plantation here. We'll leave a slight gap and bring that down to about there, and then feed that into connecting into that road like that. And again, we're just going to use forestry fencing as a bit of a boundary border here to help protect and signify the edge of our area. So let's turn off snapping for this, and we can bring it out across the back there, and then equally up the side of these trees. And again, like here, we're getting rid of the trees, but the resources are still there because the trees are still technically hidden under all of these assets. So what we can do here is then use a little bit of nature reserve pathing as, again, a bit of a detailing opportunity up against this fence. And then that gives us a bit of a break in the trees really, really close to the road there. It kind of breaks it up a little bit, so it's not such a uniform pattern as it was previously. And then here you'll see, I think we're not going to be able to get a fence in there, so we can leave that as open trees. And then they come down to the fenced area here. Gives a nice little bit of variation like that. So coming back to our main complex, I'm actually really happy with the placement of these we put in before, but we do definitely need to get some paper resources in there. So we've got a sawmill and we've got the engineered wood plant for plain timber, but we haven't got anything for paper. So I'm thinking I would like this asset here. Our curve is a little bit too sharp to fit it in. So let's just trim that back a tiny bit. And we'll put the biomass pellet plant in here. And again, that just helps extend out this gravelly kind of area. And it's kind of annoying we don't have a surface painter in the vanilla game to get rid of the concrete here, because I just break it up a little bit. But all in all, it's not too bad. So let's then grab our industrial road like this and see if we can get this to join up. We might need to make this curve slightly less severe. We'll go back onto freeform and see if we can bend it around in a slightly more subtle way. Thinking something maybe like this. And then use our road guidelines to snap in a nice curve there. That still brings them nice and gradually up the slope, and we can fit in our biomass pellet plant there. And the good thing about these trees as well is you'll see here, they conform to the terrain. So we can get some nice slopey bankings and not worry too much about the terrain being super janky in some of these places, and just keep some of these assets which really need the terrain nice and flat for them to work in the centre here where we do have the flat terrain. So let's then go ahead and put in some larger tree plantations, and what I do like to do to break it up a little bit is also mix in the sapling fields, and they do actually have a better production rate than just the main plantations. So yeah, they're good to use as well from that point of view, but it does also help to break up some of the monotony that we can find within some of these tree plantations otherwise. And then we can complement that, I think, with a couple more over here. And you'll see when we're placing this in, this will sit slightly further away from the road there to allow us a little bit more room. And then hopefully we should still fit in a plantation next to it. Yes, like that. And then again over here, we can keep adding in our tree plantations and not worrying actually about the noise pollution to these houses. It can be really up close to it, and it doesn't cause us any bother. I am going to shift this over just slightly like that, because that will make a better pattern for us. So that's kind of the centre point there. Now we do have one more asset, which is a major feature in this, which is the pulp mill, which is super cool, I have to say. It's actually one of my favourite assets in the game. It can be quite a kind of skyline feature almost to it, actually. It's super tall and provides a really nice kind of industrial skyline to your city. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to bring it out a road here, and we're going to grab it. I'm going to sit it right on this corner. Now it is concreted in actually, so it probably would be more appropriate here to use our industrial roads like this. So we can do that and then feed it out into gravel behind it. But what we get from this is when we're coming down the highway, you can now see those massive stacks, and it just signifies that there is forestry in there. And then you get little peaks of the lumber yards out in the centre there. You've got all the conifers in between. So I really like that. I really like that. And thinking about its placement and its feature within the skyline, I think it's absolutely key with this asset. Now we do have a bit more flat land behind it. So again, just to beef out our forestry resources in this area and have quite a large area for us. We can bring in a gravel road behind it and then start to add a few more plantations. So something like that will do nicely. And then again, we could actually extend this a little bit further this way and just add in a little sapling field on the end here, just to add that little extra level of variation to it. Now, of course, we've got areas like this that we do need to fill. So what we can do with this is let's come in and actually delete out the trees that we do have in this area. We don't want to use forest brush for this, because if I start going in with forest brush and removing everything, it will remove the trees under our plantations already, and that will get rid of the raw resources. So we definitely don't want to be doing that. But what we can do then is come in and select the vanilla conifer and start to create extra rows of them to extend out the assets this way. And this will fill some of this voided space that we have on the side of different assets. And it will also help to create a little bit of a different look to the plantations and make them feel slightly more varied in size and shape, because I mean, realistically, not everything would be spot on square. So there we go, we kind of filled out that area nicely like that. And that's the same thing that we'll do over in this area here around these plantations, is kind of join them up with a bit more just prop conifers essentially to make it feel a bit more cohesive. Now one more thing I do want to do is actually over here. So I want to kind of bring out an extension to it, because if we go back and have a look, so we're at 951 workers, which would get us to level 5 granted. We have got one of each of the main production things, but I feel like we could beef that up with a little bit more in terms of paper and plain timber production. So what we are going to do is bring out a very small extra part to the complex over this side. So if I bring out a road like this, let's get a bit more storage in here because we've only got the one small log yard. If we have a large log yard in here, this could be a really, really nice feature up against this highway, and I definitely want to get this road in straight. So let's redraw that, and we could actually almost use this one as a guideline for it. So we could bring this across like that, but I definitely don't want it connected. So let's remove that connection and bring it out like so, and then we can plop that in here. So then again, when we're coming in from the highway, once this is all filled out, we'll get this huge pile of logs here, which I think will look pretty cool indeed. And then we can remove some of these trees here so it's slightly more visible from our main highway. And let's not forget to connect in this road. So we'll bring this out straight to the edge of the asset, and then we can connect it in like that. And across the road from it, what I'm thinking is it would be good to add in the maintenance building as well, because this one does increase the storage capacity of your industrial buildings within the area. So it's a massive help actually for the efficiency of it, and a good one to include. So I think we can bring this across this side. Then again, you know, from the highway, you can kind of see the starts of these buildings popping out over the top here. And just to support that, let's add in a little bit more forestry resource. Yeah, we've got tons over here, so we haven't got a problem with that at all. And we can also then bring in a road behind it and add in, for example, another engineered wood plant would fit in nicely here. And then we could also have another biomass pellet plant along this side, just supported by a few more plantations. Okay, so we can press play because the power should be connected all up now. And that then leads us on to a bit of detailing. So we have got a massive forestry yard here that should be producing a really decent amount of plain timber and paper. So that does mean as well that we have unlocked more factory options for ourselves. We've got the furniture factory, we have the soft paper factory as well, and the clothing factory, all of which actually we can put in because they're not reliant on ore products in order to do. We can't do the lemonade factory yet because we do need glass for that. But pretty much all of the others we can. So I think next time we're going to be coming onto a big factory district, which is going to sit here. Because we're going to have the airport out here, so I think having factories and lots of industry around it will look pretty cool indeed, and also be appropriately situated between our farm, our forestry, and also our oil area that is sitting right there too. So for now, I am going to come on to a bit of detailing and just finish up this area, like we talked about, with little bits of fencing and pathway through various different places. More conifer line designs to fill in extra spacing and make it feel more cohesive in the centre area, particularly around here, and a little bit of detailing around our additional extra forestry area out the side over this way. And of course, probably most of the detailing around these houses and these banks down here, we need to bring in the woodland so it extends out from our forestry area in the middle. We need to flesh out the schoolyard and obviously bring in lots of rocks around these edges here. We want to make it feel like a nice natural coastline. So I actually really like how this forestry area has turned out, like on this peninsula. When we look at the wider shot of the city, I feel like it blends in quite nicely, particularly kind of tucked in and blended in around this massive intersection, sort of flowing round some of these curves, not in a curvy manner, but it kind of mirrors it a little bit. Particularly here where we've done lots of prop line tools to fill in the conifers around this area, I think that's come out really nicely and makes it look like a nice unique shape and not just all boxy and square that can be very easy to do when you don't just add those extra little touches in. So coming down to the coastline festival, I did add in an awful lot of rocks along here. Lots and lots of trees in amongst the houses, which I think was important to help them blend into the forestry area as well. And obviously keeping the theme going of quite a lot of trees out this end of Fewcandy County. We will get more built up and slightly less green as we go in towards the downtown, but I want to maintain lots of green spaces throughout this city ultimately. It goes with the boreal theme, I think. But we have come in and fenced off the back of the forestry area here to make that a little bit more cohesive. I cannot for the life of me get my garage asset back in here that disappeared, which is so frustrating, but I'm still waiting for it. We have got lots of people using the train station as well, which is nice to see. Walking up, you'll see this path here, actually, there we go, walking up through into the forestry industry. So lots of usage from this station. I did put a couple of benches and bins out this side where I could squeeze them in between the station and the road. I haven't seen anyone actually using this back entrance, so I'm not 100% sure it's functional, which is slightly disappointing, but nevertheless, it works quite nicely, I think. We've added lots of fencing in along the coastal roads here to protect from falling into the water and the rocks from the road, and as we come round it's very much more of the same. Added in a few more houses down here just to support demand, again with lots of fencing around the rail from the houses and against the coastline out here, and actually left this really nice and open, which I thought looked quite nice. That fence needs fixing, which I will do in a second. Added in more pathway as well from these houses up the hill, up into the forestry area, and I think this little kind of holiday camp is what I'm going to call it, has blended in quite nicely with all of the rocks and the trees around it, and this bridge in front over here. Then the pulp mill sticking out on the top. I'm really pleased with how that's come out. And then not much really happened over here, just adding in a bit more fencing to define this little extra additional forestry area out here, but that was pretty much it. So yeah, thanks to John Robinson again for being a Patreon supporter, and I really hope you like the finished forestry area for Fewcandy County. And next time, like I said, we'll be coming in with our factory district over here, making more and more money. Even though it's 100% not needed in this city, we've got something like 14 million already. But for today, that is going to be it. So if you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. And keep those suggestions coming for what else you want to see in Fewcandy County. But that's all from me for now, so thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye!